First thing I'm doing is just like caving in Tyson's head. Welcome to... Okay guys, let's get into it. What did you think of BirdBox?
It was not sensational.
I thought it was my pick for the most part.
Mediocre.
I think this movie was a little overhyped. Because if I had, I saw so much... There's so much stuff on the internet about people, freaking out and just having, a huge experience with this movie. But I just thought it was kind of like a mediocre horror movie. Not even a horror movie, just like a suspense.
If you'd have told me people say it's the scariest movie they'd ever seen before I watched it, I would have been laughing through the whole
People
thing.
saying that?
Apparently, yeah.
Why?
They must not have seen very many scary movies.
Should we try and give a brief little overview in case people haven't seen this? I feel like a lot of people have.
Everybody had. Okay, you do it.
Okay, so this movie stars Sandra Bullock, who is a vampire, I think, because she hasn't aged in 20 years.
Vampire in the movie.
She's not a vampire in the movie. That is disinformation.
Just a bitch.
Yeah, so she's living in a world where some kind of horrible apocalypse has happened. People, for no apparent reason to her, people are freaking out and killing themselves. Like her sister, her eyes go all weird, and then she just drives her car, I think, head on into another vehicle. And so nobody knows what's happening. You just know that there's something that's making people go crazy.
Hashtag cult suicide.
Hashtag cult suicide.
So people are dying off like crazy. Sandra Bullock and her children end up in this house. John Malkovich, who's a huge asshole,
Man,
and a bunch of people.
So bad.
I loved him.
Probably my favorite character.
He's my favorite character, yeah.
Really? He was the absolute. I wanted him to die a lot early.
I don't know. I think he was probably the highlight of the movie for me.
Yeah. Well, we'll get into that
His
later.
character
We're
wasn't
still
even
in the
realistically
recap.
asshole. It was just over the top.
I don't know. I think a lot of it. Sometimes he did go a little over the top, like when he's telling everybody at the when they go to the food place, the
grocery store?
The grocery
the
store.
place where you get the foods?
that. We could just stay here. It's really? You wanted... Okay.
That's
just
what
the
you thought
five of you guys just abandon the other whatever.
I thought it was just his dialogue was just always over the top asshole. Nobody's like that.
Yeah, the first thing he says in that movie is, "You're all going to die," or something like that. He's just an asshole.
Well, he did just lose his
Okay,
wife.
let's finish the recap.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, I mean, that's the basic premise.
That's some shit.
People are
Then they get
dying
to
when they see something, and we don't ever figure out what it exactly looks like.
It's just something that's so horrific that people are just compelled to kill themselves.
I've heard.
Sorry, go ahead.
Oh, I think I cut you off.
I was just gonna say that to get into it anymore would be spoilers because then you start...
We'll have a spoiler warning before we get into some spoiler talk. We could probably just put spoiler stuff. We're gonna talk about it right now, and we can talk about some of the spoiler stuff. But I guess we can get into John Malkovich now since we already kind of started. But no, I fucking loved him.
I think he was just ridiculous. I think it bothered me that you never figure out anything about this monster thing. It just seemed lazy.
I remember commenting with the person I was watching about how how bad the special effects were, because this I thought it was pretty bad. They're using stock footage. There's that one scene at the beginning where Sandra Bullock's, I think it's her sister, goes crazy, and in the background there's a big fireball, and it's pretty obvious just something that they had just chopped in there and not even did a good job. So my friend was saying that there's going to be some big monster reveal at the end because they're saving their budget for that, and that's why the effects are so bad.
I heard that they did do that, but it was too ridiculous that they cut it.
They
did have a monster,
Really?
but it was ridiculous and people laughed and they cut it.
Really?
Yeah.
That would explain why the ending was so abrupt. It was a little just they just make it.
Yeah, it's just
spoilers.
They're
Spoilers.
just gonna live in that freaking
When
bird
really
box. I don't know if
when
the bird
she
box
just,
is the box of birds or
when
if
she,
it's the place at the end.
It's a metaphor, I guess. Maybe, I don't know.
Mind
But
blowing.
they stumble into, just in the nick of the time, just before the invisible monster makes them go crazy, she stumbles into the school for the blind. And of course everyone there is fine because none of them can see it. Why are we talking about the ending?
I don't know. How the hell did we get to that? We were
Okay,
talking about
let's
John
talk about those
Malkovich.
two people that were fucking in that one scene. Where the fuck did they go? Why?
They drove off.
They just
But
stole
why-
the car and disappeared.
They were
Why-
just assholes and
when I
they
make
stole
it
the car.
they disappeared. I was expecting them to reappear later in the movie. Like, what was the purpose of having them disappear? Why
Okay,
didn't they just
here's the
die?
purpose of having them disappear. The plot device of them taking the car and leaving, so then they don't have the car for the rest of the movie.
But you think it would be pretty
That
easy
could have
to
happened in
find-
so many ways.
Yeah, but I'm just saying, I think that's the only reason those two characters existed, just so
Like
they
I was
could
expecting.
Well,
fuck off with
all
the
the characters, aside from like John Malkovich and Sandra Bullock, for the most part, were pretty lame. Like they were all just filling a role. What did I write down? It's always like there's always the God did this, like the relationship guy, the religious
the
guy.
religious guy.
Sacrifice himself. He is Jesus because he sacrificed himself.
Yeah, there you go. But what was it?
Did he mean to
Yeah,
sacrifice?
because
I
he
thought
saw
was-
that. No, he didn't go crazy because that was just a psycho, which also doesn't make sense. Is why. What's the difference between the psychos and the normal people? I mean, obviously they're psycho, but why doesn't the monster affect them? But no, he saw
Let's
the
stick with
guy.
the religious guy. So
The guy
he
was
meant
trying to get
okay.
in, and then that Jesus guy tackled him out, but he went out. So you can just assume that he saw the monster. and
That guy was a
died.
huge trope, though. Like anytime there's like a post-apocalypse movie, there's always some guy who's like, "This is punishment." Like, do you guys see The
Always.
Mist?
Yeah.
I saw the Netflix show.
Okay,
but
well,
there was. Yeah.
There's a woman who's not Stephen King, in the theatrical version. There's this woman who's like, "You've all brought this upon yourselves. You're gonna die. We need to sacrifice." And there's always a character like that.
Yeah.
So when that guy,
Gotta
like
be there.
5 minutes into the movie, he's just like, "Yeah, this is."
Jesus.
Yeah, I was not surprised. I guess it's an interesting twist that he sacrificed himself. Because usually
Yeah,
that prophet
usually
character is just like a
when you-
huge asshole and
Yeah.
sacrifices someone else
They usually get all these people to rally up, and then they start causing
and do something
mischief.
horrible.
But so that was a nice twist on the character.
See, we can give them credit for that because that was slightly original.
But
Still
like,
arc.
yeah, no, and then you've got like the kind, handsome love interest who was. I don't know. I thought his character was pretty boring. He's just like
It's
a
just
really
what was
super
his name?
generic.
Exactly.
Mom of all things.
Oh yeah, Tom. The only
Ah.
character whose
As
name I
generic as
knew
possible.
was Mallory.
Yeah.
I think that's Sandra
What
Bullock's
about
character.
Girl and
Yeah.
Boy?
Girl and
I
Boy.
knew their names the whole time.
But yeah, no. Yeah, all the characters aside from John Malkovich and Sandra Bullock were really forgettable. Like even that old lady
They
that
weren't
was
even
like
that cool,
in the
though.
background of all the scenes. Like I forgot she existed until she
Yeah,
hit that
she's
guy.
I was
in the
wondering
face.
she's another plot device. She existed in that movie so she could smash the guy in the back of the head with like the chair or whatever it was.
That's the first time she was introduced. I didn't even remember seeing her face. I just kept on hearing her voice, and I was like, "Who is this old woman?"
I forgot about her until like she makes her reappearance and smashes the guy in the back of the head.
Yeah, no.
But yeah, there
she-
were characters who just like, we need this guy to do this, and these two have to like fuck
Fuck.
off with the car. So they have to fuck, and then they have to fuck off with the
Fuck
car.
in the car.
They probably did
probably
that
like
later.
and then fucking crashed.
So
Like, why didn't they at least throw in a scene of them crashing the car or dying or something? Just
okay, because no one
Like,
cares.
yeah, no,
I
like
guess.
as soon as they
Or
drive
I was
off,
expecting,
they fulfill
like, does
their
that-
part.
I was expecting maybe at the end when she gets to the school of blind, maybe those people will be there or something, or they'd reappear in some way. It's just,
But do they need to? Like, does anyone care what happened to them? Like, they weren't even fleshed out characters. They're just
none of the characters were fleshed out.
except Mallory.
Except for Mallory and I guess John Malkovich. He like, I really liked his redemption scene at the end when he was like I guess spoilers.
We need to get you a
Like-
less freaky chair.
He had like a beanbag chair.
Probably.
That would be noisy.
That'd probably be way more noisy. But like I have a real soft spot for the.
I'm just so paranoid that I didn't hit record.
I'd be so sad.
That could happen.
But like I have a soft spot for the redeemed asshole in movies.
But it's just so bland and generic.
Okay, but tell me about his redemption.
Well, he could have just fucked off with the shotgun, right? But he went back to try and save the kids, and then he ended up dying trying to do it. Like I like that.
Wait,
like
I thought,
that was kind of the whole thing. Is that he's an asshole. Nobody likes him, but he's still like I don't know.
Like every
you know,
asshole
I
in
thought
every
it
movie
was.
ever.
I thought we were talking about John Malkovich, but now it sounds like you're talking about Tom.
No, John Malkovich.
He also saved the kids.
He tried to. Remember, he went in with the shotgun, and he was like with his eyes
Oh,
closed.
oh yeah.
Trying
okay,
to shoot that
he
guy.
tried.
And then he ended up getting stabbed with scissors.
Yeah, and then she just did it again, or the guy just stabbed him again. I was like, oh god, like he's already bleeding out so much, it's just excessive. But yeah, I thought that John Malkovich was going to have a larger role in that movie, just because they established him as like, I'm an asshole, I don't care about nobody. I thought he was going to have like a
Character
redemption.
development.
Yeah, more character development, but like basically, I thought
Yeah.
he was going to do what Tom did. Like he was going to be like the guy at the end and like kind of save the day. But then he sort of like he tries, but then he just like dies halfway through the movie.
See, that would have been really interesting actually if they switched Tom and John. Tom died and John Malkovich survived, and then it was just the two of them that ran off to go fucking raise the kids. Like that would
raise the kids.
So if like Mallory
and
if Tom died earlier,
if Tom died in that
and then
scene,
the old guy,
like if he got stabbed by,
see, that would have been a more interesting movie if Malkovich had lived instead of Tom.
Yeah,
I agree.
like that would have been cool.
Because Tom had no character at all.
Exactly.
Malkovich was kind of a trope, but he had a bit of development. He's just more interesting.
Like as soon as he was starting to have some development, they killed him.
Yeah.
Like I would have loved to have seen if they were the only two survivors instead of her and Tom, because Tom was boring.
And stupid. Why did he throw the blindfold on the ground?
Okay, tell me about this because I don't.
I guess this is
Well,
another spoiler part.
Well, when he comes,
we've been in spoilers for like 10
I think
when all of
already
the
kinda
psychos
screwed
come to the
pitch.
house, and he tells Sandra to run with the kids, he goes out with his gun, and he's like, fuck it, and he takes his blindfold off so he can shoot these psychos. After icing like 3 of them blindfolded first try.
Yeah, that was like...
That was whack. How did he do that?
Wow, that's lucky.
But he could have taken that blindfold off, iced those other 2 or 3 guys, and put it back on. But instead, he took it off, and he's like, well, I guess this is suicide, and he threw it on the ground. Like, he could have put it back on and survived, but he didn't even try.
Yeah, that is goofy.
It was stupid.
There was a few times where people took their blindfolds off and just left them off in really inopportune times. Like, I think one time, Sandra Bullock's in... It looks like it was an old school or something.
Yeah. I don't know.
And she was collecting blankets?
Yeah, she's getting some stuff, and then she just leaves it off. And she outside she could hear like the weird spirit things like
yeah,
rattling around.
And
I was
leaves
like,
blowing around.
yeah, it's like maybe put the blindfold back on.
Like,
Now.
I was just yelling that whole scene. I was like, grab the freaking string and put your blindfold back on.
Yeah.
If you put your blindfold on here, you're not gonna get the string. Like, do something.
Yeah, there's some weird decisions made by people.
Yeah.
Yeah, that made me angry.
Why did they never name the kids? Like,
Okay, I was talking about this with my friend I was watching, and she thought that Sandra Bullock just expected them all to die, so she didn't want to get attached, so she named them girl and boy.
see, I get
Which is the only
that.
thing that I can think of.
Well, and it's the only thing that really makes sense. But like, this was when she also had the other guy with her, and he was like on board with it. It's like, yeah,
But
we'll
why
just
didn't he
fucking not
make
name
her
them in
name the
case they
kids?
die.
Because he loved the kids. He was like telling them stories and stuff. Why did he let her treat them like that?
I don't know. It's hard to say what's going on in Tom's head because like he just
He doesn't have one.
the only time that he
Yeah,
starts building
exactly.
some character is like when he's telling the bedtime story, and then I think doesn't Mallory like
She cuts
break
him
it
off.
up? She's like, no, don't bond with the children,
Yeah.
Tom, idiot. So I don't know. Like who knows why Tom does anything? Who knows why anyone does anything? Because we don't know anything
No one
about these
knows about
characters.
fucking-
Okay, but the thing about the kids that bothered me too is those kids were born in that world, and they were almost convinced to take their blindfold off when they were separated from Mallory for like
Literally like
a couple
minute and a
minutes,
half.
and they were about to take their blindfolds off. They probably know better than she does not to take their blindfold off. That's literally all they know.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Is
Kids are just
blindfolded.
irrational, though. Like at one point, at one point, girl, like actually leaves the boat to run after
Yeah.
Mallory. Like, what are you gonna do, stupid little like
Trip.
4-year-old girl?
Well, she had the wits to fucking put the rope on first, so I guess credit there.
That's something.
It'd be pretty funny if Sandra Bullock didn't know that because she has her blindfold
And
on.
then, like-
the kid climbed off the boat, so she just started sailing away.
And like they were building up to this sacrifice too. Like one of you has to look to get down the
No,
rapids,
she's pretty
and then
good
they
at
just
fucking-
do it no problem. They tip the boat,
Well,
and they don't even care that they tipped the boat. They just swim to shore, and it's all good.
yeah, it's weird. They have this like, oh, we're gonna do Sophie's choice. Like you have to choose your baby or like your dead friend's baby, and then it's just neither.
Yeah, it's just neither. And they both
We'll just
survive the
fucking risk
And
rapids.
it's like, oh, just.
How about we all survive?
I guess that's like the dramatic twist. It's like, no, we're all gonna
It
die.
wasn't nearly as dramatic as I think they wanted it to be. Not to me, anyway. I just thought it was like, okay, so you didn't actually have to sacrifice. You just wanted to kill the kid or something.
She just like really doesn't fucking.
you
like
made
them.
it without.
Yeah.
Like I feel like if they made that decision, one of the kids should have died anyway. Like it would have redeemed the character, Mallory's character, but then,
Kid death
realize-
redeems Mallory.
well, no, it would have redeemed her by her saying, "Hey, we are going to do this without you guys looking," but then realized, oh, the reality is somebody had to sacrifice or else we won't all make it anyway. Because, like, how did they make it down the rapids blindfolded?
Well, I mean, they almost didn't.
But
Came pretty
they
close
fell
to-
in
I
the
don't know
water
too
and
much.
managed to grab onto rocks or swim to shore.
They were
blindly.
extremely lucky because I remember one of them being like swept down the stream and then just grabbing a rock, and it's like, man, that's like,
How
it's
do
like
you get
it's
that?
the only boulder you can see like in the whole scene. It's like, wow, good thing you just happened to like go past that. Otherwise, this movie would have a whole other ending. Like you'd just be gone.
It would have been
Yeah.
like crazy intense if like they got back to the sanctuary and then one of the kids had like the psychopath eyes. Like
That would've been
she
cool.
like fucking like one of them peeked and they got the psychopath eyes. And
Yeah,
But they didn't get the
revealed that
psychopath that. They would have killed themselves before they got there. Because the
Yeah, they
psychopaths...
made them
yeah, they
check.
never really explain. Well, it still would have been interesting. Like what do they do? Does she like take off with the kid and just leave the other kid in the sanctuary, or like is she just like
Yeah, I
okay,
wish-
fine, fucking kill him? Like
think it's
I
one of
wish
those
you could
things-
understand... I wish that they made us understand the psychopath thing better.
yeah,
Like, why are those people affected differently? Why do they want everybody
they
else
never
to
like
see?
were they crazy
That
beforehand?
was dumb because she's talking about people at the mental asylum, like they're already
But that
crazy,
was-
so they can't go crazy again. But it's like you have probably dozens of different like
Levels.
disorders. Like some people have like personality disorders, like extreme schizophrenia. Like they're not all just
Yeah.
crazy. They're not the kind of crazy where they like just start trying to kill themselves. So why would that make you immune?
And
to
then
anything?
the crazy people aren't trying to kill themselves; they're just trying to get others to kill themselves. With that,
Oh, that was like the
That's-
special.
oh, it's beautiful.
That was like the special, like the religious cult that popped up, and I guess they were immune to it, and they just
yeah, which
the
makes
guy's
no
like,
sense.
no, everybody must see it, just so everybody.
Doesn't
Why,
it-
why don't you just say let's kill everybody? Because when you say everybody must see it, just,
You know they're just
you just
gonna
want
die
them to
because
die.
He's
It's
gonna
not-
fucking die anyway.
like you have some kind of like vision before you die. Like I don't understand.
Well, it seems like people were seeing loved ones before they died because you remember that woman came out to save Mallory, and she's like said she saw her mother, and then she walked over and got into that burning car.
Oh, yeah.
Like it seems like they were seeing loved ones, and then when those weird ass auditory hallucinations started, like the
Mhm.
monster learned how to talk near the end.
like those come out
It
of
was
nowhere.
wasn't it Tom's voice trying to tell Mallory take the blindfold off?
I must
So, like the
have missed
monster's using loved ones to get.
Well, at the
So it
end,
seems
like
that's
out
what
of
they
nowhere,
see.
in the last, like, right during the forest scene when they're trying to get to the sanctuary, suddenly they're hearing people they know, like, telling them to take off their blindfolds and
Oh, okay.
stuff. And it just comes out of nowhere.
Yeah, like when they were all together in that house, you never heard the monster talk. Or the scene where they were driving to the supermarket, the monster was like all around the car and it never said anything.
Yeah.
Like,
You,
why
heard, you
wasn't
heard
it
like the weird rustling. Of
Yeah, why wasn't it like,
stuff.
hey, get out of your car, it's fine.
So maybe the religious fanatics think that people are having the experiences when really it's just like the monster punking you, basically.
Well, that's what it seems like the monster's trying to do, punk you, be like, oh, joke's on you, kill yourself.
But like the religious guys just don't get it. They don't get it that it's not actually like your loved ones.
Maybe that's it, maybe they... I don't know.
Because they seem super on about like you have to look at this thing so you can see like your
But it seemed-
dead grandma for 1 second and then die.
They make it sound like they're all seeing the same thing, though. Like the psychos do.
Okay.
Because they always say you need to see this. Like this is something everybody has to see. So it
Yeah.
sounds like they're all seeing the same thing
The way
and not
they
their loved
phrase
ones.
it does. It just seems like based on the other people, the non-religious extremists, it seems like people are seeing something from their own
different.
life.
Yeah.
Well, I heard from somebody it's like you see your worst nightmare, which doesn't really make any sense.
See, this is all confusing because I thought the whole point of the monster was you saw something so horrific that you just had to kill yourself immediately. But then other people are like seeing their dead loved ones.
Yeah, like
or
when you see
whatever.
a ghost make you want to kill yourself, I
Yeah.
guess.
Maybe.
Doesn't really make sense.
Seeing a dead ghost of your loved one might creep you out, but I don't think you're just going to start
I think
smashing your face into a window until you die.
this is like probably kind of where the part comes in where it's like, where do you draw the line between actually showing people something as letting their imagination take hold? Like, when are you just leaving too much information out for people to just start asking way too many questions? Like, because it's disappointing not to see a monster, but what would they have shown that
No,
wouldn't
I
have
think
been really
They
disappointing?
definitely could have explained more without showing the monster. This is a movie that I feel like they left too much to discussion. It's like everybody's we're on the same page. Like, what the hell just happened? Like, if they could have explained without actually showing a monster. Like, somebody could have figured it out, or like maybe a psychopath could have talked and said what they saw. Anything.
Actually, yeah, that's a good point.
It would have been
Oh,
nice to
they
have
see
a
it.
bit more, and from one of the cycles would have been a good way
Like,
to
I
do it.
want to say I want to know more about it, but I really can't think of anything that would have. Like, I guess it's not my job to think of what it could have been, but
I do
can't
agree
think of
with you
anything
that no matter what it was, it would have been someone. A lot of people would have thought it was lame. Like
If
if
there
you
was a monster,
well, that's
well, yeah, if it was anything, if there's any reveal at any point, some people might like it, but I just feel like you're never going to please that many people. Some
Well, you
people
know.
say, "Oh, that's not scary,"
Because
or
when it
"That's
comes,
dumb."
that's the problem I have with horror movies altogether, is that when it comes to fear, it's so specific. Like, everybody's scared of something different on different levels. So that's why you get so many jump scares in movies. Is because that's something that affects everybody on just like a base human instinct level. Is if you suddenly see something, and that you have like a loud scream, and then you put your guards up, and that's what gets people. But like when it comes to actually creating something that scares people, you can't please everybody because everybody has such different fears.
Yeah, I hate jump scares.
Yeah.
I despise those.
Which is why I like this. I had it written down right here. Like there was no jump scares, so that was already a move in the right direction.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I don't think I was scared at any point in the movie.
What?
There's some tension
It's
created a
more-
few times, like Sandra Bullock like going around a corner. I think some was the camera work too. You couldn't quite see where you wanted to see, so that was causing some tension. But aside from like a few moments like that, I don't
there was
know.
suspense, but
There's-
not actual fear. Not
Yes.
for me.
Oh shit! What was I gonna say? I forgot what it was. But basically, yeah, I agree. Like it, it's definitely more along the lines of just a suspense thriller than like an actual horror movie. Because like it's just like it's more okay. That's what it was. It's more of just like a scary situation to be in than it is of more like there's a monster and we got to be scared. It's more focused on the idea of you can't look, or else.
I feel like
Which does kind of rob. I can see why they had to bring in the psychopaths because it kind of robs the movie of a lot of. Like, if there's only, like, if you just don't look and you don't have to worry about anything, like, sure, it'll take you a really long time to get around.
But you'll be fine.
You'll be fine as long as you don't look because they don't actually hurt anybody.
Yeah.
So they had to bring in these psychopaths to actually raise the stakes a bit more. But they never explained very well, like, why these people are affected differently. Because
Sometimes that makes it scarier, though, if there's just, like, this group of weirdos out there, and it's, like, sometimes just the unknown. And also, it's just hard, it's, like, too much expository dialogue. If they had some, like, if we had, like, scientist man just saying, like, well, I know why the cycles out there, they have this brain disease, and, like, blah, 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 and just like, I roll my eyes at that kind of thing, so it's hard to strike a balance where you don't have that kind of thing, but you also know enough of what's going on to get into the movie.
through the whole movie, I was expecting some sort of a metaphor to become clear. Like that's what I kind of thought that the monster was going to be.
It was a metaphor.
Well, I thought it was going to be some sort of a commentary, honestly, but it never became clear at the end, so I was kind of disappointed. Like I didn't expect to see a monster, but I expected to understand something.
I think it's just we've gotten to the point where we've had all these decades of horror movies, and it's so hard to shock people anymore. Like you can go online and see like the most horrific things. Like
Yeah.
you can go on live and you can see someone getting their brains blown out with a shotgun. Like it's just hard to shock people. So when you have a movie like this, it's maybe they knew like okay, we can't have a reveal. People are gonna laugh at it. Like just people are so desensitized. So it's almost like I feel like horror movies might just like they've almost run their course because you have to get it like BirdBox kind of does a good job of being original, but at the same time it's like a
Like the only ones that are survived now is just the jump scare ones because people
Well,
like
I
watching
kinda-
that shit in theaters.
people are sick of that though, man. Like I mean, I'm sick of it.
Well,
Well, I don't really like it either, but I feel like people keep going to theaters to watch stuff like that. I mean,
You
people
might
still
be
go to
right.
theaters to watch superhero movies. Every one of them is the same.
I just think like the real horror movie is basically dead.
Yeah.
Jump scares, that's almost like its own little genre.
And that kind
but,
of
like,
plays into the, like, if you combine the desensitization people are getting used to along with the whole fear thing I was going over earlier with it being too specific to please everybody, like, it's no wonder that people have to get more and more creative with exactly how they deliver to the point where it just more becomes about the suspense of the setting instead of the actual horror aspect of it itself. Like, what other horror movies have people... I haven't seen too many. Like I said, I'm not a huge fan of horror movies, but it would probably be a good time to, if we hadn't watched any, to compare it to different horror movies that people have been talking praise
It's-
about.
I
So
feel like the
rare
writers
to
of
get a good one.
BirdBox probably wanted people to have conversations like this, so I think that they got what they wanted, you know?
yeah, I don't know if there's like some kind of marketing campaign, but it just seemed like everybody.
What?
What's that?
Well, for the movie, they
I
wanted
just
people
mean
to have
like,
conversations
like,
like
the amount
this.
of buzz that existed about this movie, like a Sandra Bullock movie called Bird Box. Like it's just weird that it blew up the way it did. Like when we were out there, like I think everyone at the couch was like, "Oh yeah, Bird Box." And I was watching, my roommate like hears a little bit. He's like, "Are you watching Bird Box?" Like everybody's
Everybody's
either seen it or they know what it is.
Yeah, I
That's
keep seeing it all
weird,
over
it's
Facebook
not
and
like
stuff.
exemplary.
I mean,
Like,
it's
it's
just kind of.
definitely not terrible, but
See, I think there must have just been a really good marketing campaign, which is weird because you don't. I mean, it wasn't in theaters. I don't know where I saw it.
I
just
feel like
be
you don't really have
because
to
of the-
market something like that when it shows up on Netflix as Netflix original. so many people are going to watch it
True,
just
it's
because
just right
of
at
that.
the top
And then
of your
the
screen.
thing that I said earlier is they wanted people to have conversations like this, and then those conversations were the marketing. That's how they got everybody to watch it.
I do think they just kind of picked it as a thing that they were going to push. Because there's a bunch of there's tons of Netflix originals, but Bird Box is the one that's just been like plastered to the very top for like 2 weeks or however long it's been out. So there must have been, they must have had some idea that it was going to work, but it's just weird that this really like average, like mediocre suspense movie was like almost like a cultural phenomenon for like 2 weeks.
It was based on a novel. I wonder how many people actually watched it because they read the novel. Because
Probably
I hadn't heard of it before.
Probably like 2 people.
Yeah.
Most
the
people
guy that
just-
wrote the script for this movie.
He's the only one who's read the novel. I'm curious to know if the novel answered questions that the movie just left out for the sake of Hollywood and thriller and stuff.
I bet
but
it
I don't
did.
think I'm going to read the novel.
Either that, or it was more of like they took the idea from the book and then worked something of their own with it. Like the book could have just been about the monsters that cause people to kill themselves, but like they created new characters, and so it kind of like they just took the idea of the book because it is say based off of or influenced.
Well, yeah, but I don't know anything about the book.
Yeah,
so
it's hard to say what the extent is. Sometimes it's just like an idea, and they take that and sometimes movies can be pretty faithful, but yeah, it's hard to say.
Well, who
Is
knows?
it
Probably people who've read the book know.
Yeah,
Not us.
Like
I'm
the-
sure not reading the book.
Because there was like that World War Z where the movie had literally nothing.
It's
to
World
do
War
with the
Z,
book.
Tyson. This is Canada.
My apologies.
Get out.
Yeah, there's a
Get the
door.
fuck out. But no, like there was a couple characters that had the same names, but like the book was a documentary. Like there was a guy going around interviewing people that survived the apocalypse, like doctors and people that had it just was a completely different. And so I'm wondering if it's another situation like that, like how much it just draws from the book.
I really doubt that Netflix was super concerned with making like an adaptation that would please the fans of the novel. I'm sure they just were going with like, well, what's gonna work out best for
Netflix.
getting people interested in making us money.
So people do like a BirdBox challenge on social media? Because I heard about that, but I haven't seen it.
People put on blindfolds and like
Drive.
walk into the street or they drive.
There's already been a couple reported car crashes from people
I wonder if
crashing.
anyone's died yet from that.
I don't know.
Teenagers.
That would be ironic as fuck.
It would be stupid.
Well, yeah, for sure.
Oh my god, it's always mind blowing. Like it's just so sad to go. It's like, oh, okay, now people are blindfolding themselves and driving into each other, like just for internet challenges.
One controversy that came out of this movie was some of that stock footage I was talking about, the explosions.
Mm-hmm.
One of them was footage that they cut in from an explosion at Lac Mégantic, that town in Quebec, where a train derailed and exploded and it killed like 47 people. And they used footage from that in BirdBox.
Yeah,
I don't remember which one because there's a few explosions. Probably in the beginning because that's when all the stuff was. Yeah, probably the opening scene. But people were like freaking out about it. It's a really weird thing to do. They just got it from some stock footage website, and so people got angry. And I just read this morning that Netflix is they're not gonna re-edit the movie, which I understand because it's probably super expensive and like they're probably just thinking like, fuck you, like it's not worth the money.
That was pretty lame. Like, just, I don't know, just make an explosion.
Well, I mean, that's
get that it's-
expensive.
yeah.
I feel like this is it feels like a pretty low budget movie, and it's like you couldn't even there's no monster. The only explosions they have are stock footage. Why couldn't you just have had some decent pyrotechnics going on? Maybe Sandra Bullock just took up the entire budget with $50 million salary.
They only have 10 million to make the rest of the movie.
It wouldn't surprise me. It is interesting how many big stars. I guess Sandra Bullock's still a big star.
We're getting into lower budget.
Yeah, well,
stuff.
not just lower budget, but people are doing direct to TV stuff now, like Netflix, and less. I don't know. It's almost because every single movie that comes out these days is a comic book movie or a sequel. So maybe if you're Sandra Bullock or John Malkovich, you don't really fit in so well to Spider-Man 7 or whatever, or Transformers 15. So you go to Netflix and you can make good money on Netflix. But you see a lot of big name stars just doing direct to Netflix things.
Yeah, no, I think, what was it? They mentioned that Bright was their introduction to actual like cinema level movies that they're going to try and push out. And I'm wondering if BirdBox was another one of those.
I wonder if Netflix is going to try to get their Netflix originals in theaters, because I think I would have enjoyed Bird Box more if I watched it in a theater.
Yeah, definitely.
It's a lot of fun, yeah, watching it.
It would have been better, like with the surround sound and
Plus,
like
just the atmosphere would have built.
it being dark. Because I was sitting there and like we were just kind of like joking most of the time.
Yeah.
Which kind of takes away the atmosphere.
Definitely.
Which is a problem. But
I was just like screaming, like, "Put your freaking blindfold back on!"
I did actually enjoy some of the atmosphere when they were riding on the boat. And like
I just like that river.
actually, I really like because the way they bounce back and forth, is kind of interesting because you see that it's only Sandra Bullock and these two kids, and slowly figuring out where these kids are coming from is interesting. But one thing I noticed was you're introduced to the psychopaths before
you understand them,
like because you see like this one guy's in the river and he's shouting and he's like, "Hey, come on, it's fine." And you're like, "Why the hell is she being such an asshole about?" Like she shoots at him before she even like knows. And it's like, "Hey, this guy could be trying to help you," and you're wondering like, what the hell.
Or else he'd be wearing a
but
blindfold.
like you don't know that at the time.
she still had her blindfold on though, right?
Oh,
she
Yeah,
didn't
no,
know.
but like the point is that like, you see her like attack this guy, and it turns out she's right? Like he's trying to fucking get her fucked. But then
that's what he
later,
was doing.
but then later
Cut
in
that.
the like when in the flashback scenes that take place before, then you see how these psychopaths act, and like the one guy pretended to be a good person for a very long time before he finally made his attack.
Like how psycho are they?
So,
they just don't make sense at
Like
all.
it makes so when you go back and rewatch it, you'll see it makes a lot more sense for her to like immediately start shooting at this guy.
Well, yeah, it definitely made sense. It is weird that they did that before they introduced the psychopaths in the flashback kind of things, though.
I liked it. I thought
That's
it was a
almost
good way to set it up.
part of the horror is just like you don't know who this guy is.
Yeah.
You just know that she's terrified enough that she's just like blindly shooting at him, and you don't
Hacking
know.
him up with the shade.
So yeah, it's like you don't know why he wants to kill her. They're just like this psycho in the river, which is, I think that's a lot more scary than just like if we had this stupid explanation of like way too much information on why they're like this and who they are and their backstory. Like,
Unlike the only information we get of these psychopaths is from one of the crazy people themselves. So like, who knows how much fucking truth he's telling anyway? Like, it really could just happen.
But he didn't say anything we didn't know
because he was
did
wearing
exactly
like
what
a
he
blue
said.
shirt and tie. Like he looked like just a fucking like.
and he was British, so you'd think he'd be a trustworthy gentleman.
Yeah. Like it's really weird, but then he's suddenly trying to fucking kill everybody. So
There's the
See,
moral of
John-
the whole story. Is
John-
that the guys in the suits can be the psychos.
John Malkovich was right. The asshole was right.
See, and that's
They
another
didn't
thing I
listen
liked,
to the asshole.
is that he was right. Like they should have kicked him out.
Why didn't he break the freaking window in the garage, though? Like, he was just looking, and he wasn't making an effort to break the door down. He
No, I
was
think
just
he
looking
could've
in the
punched,
window like, oh god,
he's in
this
a
guy's gonna
freaking
kill
garage.
everybody in here.
Like just bust the glass and
Oh, yeah,
open
he
the
just
door
watched
down.
him.
He
And
could
I
have
think-
done things.
I think somebody's like, "What are you doing?"
Obviously,
you know what he's doing.
Opening the
He's
garage
up to no
door is
good.
killing you.
That was pretty funny.
Start
He's
kicking
like-
the door. What are you
Yeah.
doing? You
Where-
fuck,
where-
you're the
where-
one
where
you're
you
the one who
going?
knew.
Fuck you, what do you mean, what are you doing? Break down the door.
That was
I
hilarious.
mean, John Malkovich is probably getting up though, so maybe just
Too old to
he's
break
just
down
too
the
old
door.
to kick the door.
They should have gave him some better dialogue. That was fucking hilarious.
That was
He
just,
keeps like,
I found it comical when he was just looking, and then he's yelling at Tom, I think it was. He's like, grab the shotgun. It's like, start banging on the door to get his attention or something. Put some freaking effort into it.
Tom's just wandering around, like trying to piece it together by himself.
Oh yeah,
And
and
he just-
I thought it was weird when the British guy both women simultaneously go into labor at the
That
same
was
time.
whack.
That's hilarious.
So then
Like,
they're
what the
both,
fuck?
everyone runs upstairs and the British guy just stays down and he like pulls out all his creepy
Yeah,
drawings.
so that must be what he sees.
That is.
So like, yeah, that's actually interesting. I like that.
That's the only
way
time
of
you see the monsters.
Showing the
It's weird.
monsters. It's I actually.
But
didn't
they were
give
just
it enough
super
credit.
generic horror movie monsters. Like, you didn't really
I
like
don't know. I kind of liked them. The
They're
drawings.
kind of cool.
Well, I mean, they were cool designs.
You don't get like a great look at them. I just
But
thought
that's
it's
kinda-
weird that it's like, yes, you're alone in the room, and so you pulled all your creepy drawings, but at any moment, someone could just run in and be like,
Why do you have these?
why do you have all these creepy drawings? Like,
He's like, oh,
have you been drawing the monster? And then he goes off somewhere, and he just leaves all his stuff out, and was like, dude, like, pick up your drawings, like, you're gonna get busted. But I guess maybe he's thinking, like, because I think he leaves and just immediately starts opening up the windows, like, ripping all the
Yeah.
paper, so that the
That's a
spooky
secret.
stuff can get in. So he's just like, well, fuck it, like,
Spooky stuff.
so he's probably just like, screw it, like, I don't care if they see my drawings, because I'm just gonna rip all this paper off, and you're all doomed.
Yeah, are the fucking monster whatever's not allowed to go inside? Because they're never inside.
Like, it's always
ever.
through a window. That's why it was like, is the monster just outside? Oh, that's weird. they're always safe when they're inside. Like, you notice later on, whenever she walks inside, she always takes her blindfold off really confidently.
Yeah, and stupidly, because she really doesn't have any good reason to think that they can't come inside. Like, yeah, maybe she's, I don't know, like, what's the script? Can you see the script? Is the script line over there, Sandra Bullock? She's like, why do you know that it's okay to take your blindfold off whenever you come inside?
Same with the grocery store. Why is
she's pretty confident.
Why is the monster looped? I'm sure the monster wants a freaking free craft dinner.
What about craft dinner?
Well, I said, like the grocery store, how do they just know they can take their blindfolds off? Like, if the monster's in there looting some free craft dinner.
Yeah, that was weird. Just the assumption
that's a big building to just take your blindfold off.
Like, what if they
assume it's safe?
What if they just like slipped in with you when you opened the door and they're just in there now? Like, you don't know. I don't know. Plus, all the grocery store had a bunch of windows, and people were. It seemed like you could look through a window and see the monster and go crazy. They strapped that guy to the chair.
Well, he did it willingly. It was his choice.
Yeah. But the point is, he was watching on a TV, wasn't he?
Yeah, and he
went
wacko.
If you can watch one of these things on the TV and go psycho and kill yourself, then maybe don't take off your blindfold when you're in a building with a bunch of like massive windows. I guess that's even worse.
Yeah, no, that was like I don't get the whole building thing because they immediately took off any blindfolds or anything they have.
Moral of the story is, don't let your kids go outside. It's dangerous. Everybody stay inside and play Minecraft.
Forever.
The moral of the story is always put on a blindfold if you're going to go drive somewhere or across the street.
What about like if like me and Tyler talked about this briefly last night. It would have been interesting if Tom had turned into one of the psychopaths. Like when he
threw his blindfold, what if he saw the monster and he didn't kill himself?
Like he
just realized he was one of the psychos.
Sandra Bullock has to fight him off. Like that would have been an interesting finale.
If you were blindfolded this whole time, how would you know if you were a psycho until you took your blindfold off and saw it?
Weren't the psychos all the guys from the mental ward?
Well, they can't.
That's what those crazy guys said. Like, how do we know he wasn't making that up?
Yeah, who knows?
I don't know. I guess I could touch really quick. I liked the debate between surviving and living. Like, it's probably the only reason I actually liked the fact
it's just generic, though. Like, there's not much.
It wasn't touched on too quickly, but it works, like, with the kids. Like,
are you just surviving, or are you actually, like, living
like, she wants
life?
to, like, we just gotta stay fucking alive, and he's like, why? Like, what are we fighting for if it's not to find a way to actually live normal?
I don't know. This movie was okay. It wasn't, like, the worst thing I've ever seen, but it was just...
Like
it
was an interesting idea. The characters, for the most part, sucked, aside from John Malkovich and Sandra Bullock. Atmosphere on the boat was kind of nice, and I liked some of the chaos afterwards when they were driving to the mall. That was nice. But
this movie just felt like it kind of followed just the standard, like, disaster horror movie plot line.
Yeah.
Like, right up, even when that British guy showed up, I was like, of course. Like, there's always someone who shows up at your little shelter. And it's like, do you let him in? Is he good? Is he bad? But, like, that always happens. I was like, yeah, that guy's, like, right on cue, like, almost out of the minute. Like, oh, here's the random interloper. and then the whole thing of, like, oh, there's a camp somewhere that we have to get to. Like,
yeah,
that's like every zombie movie has
Garden
that.
of Eden's over there.
Like the utopia they gotta get to.
This movie was just, it was just like, how many, like, stereotypical plots and tropes can we shove into this thing?
Yeah, it definitely could have used a lot more work when it came to some of the plot and the characters, but...
I would have liked to see more bird action, more budgies.
I did really like those birds.
Yeah, those budgies are pretty cute. But there's not. I mean, it's called BirdBox.
Like, we did barely...
I wanted to see
and the birds, I guess... They were in a box at some point, right? But they started out in the cage, and I was like, why do they call this movie Birdcage?
Am I right?
Okay, but when freaking what's-his-name on the walkie-talker says, just follow the birds, I was like, well, that's sketchy as shit, because the birds freak out when the monster's near. Like, you sound like you're in a camp full of monsters. That whole really that whole sanctuary thing just sounded sketchy as heck.
Yeah.
Until she got there, and I was expecting it to not be a happy ending, really, at that point.
Hey, yeah, how the hell are they? Do they have like a garden or something? How the hell are they feeding all these people? Like, it's just, we're just supposed to assume
maybe just like a massive
that,
or something, or they might have just done what the other crew
ending.
did and like robbed the heck out of a grocery store.
See, I've always wanted to loot a grocery store, so if like anything like that ever happens, that's the first thing
we'll all go out and loot a grocery store.
First thing I'm doing is just like caving in Tyson's head, just.
And then we'll loot a grocery
store.
store.
Kill Tyson, you guys can go.
And then we can go loot a grocery store.
I like it. I would be the old dude though. Just go to the liquor
shelves.
shelves.
You just drinks like half a 2-6 in like 5 minutes and
it
just gets wasted.
No, I think we've kind of touched all the bases.
Should we wrap up? Give it like stars out of 5. Maybe or just our
I'm
final
good
word.
at like stars. I
Final
usually just
word?
say what I think it is.
It was okay.
We'll start with Tyler.
It was okay.
Is that it?
That's pretty much it. Yeah.
We could do like a 3-word review, like
It
what Anton said.
Was fine.
It was all right,
We all said the same thing.
but
pretty much.
differently.
Just synonyms.
I don't know. I'd recommend it, but like I wouldn't go out of your way to watch it. Like it's
Yeah, considering it's free and on Netflix, it's fine if you got like 2 hours to kill. But I would not, there's no way I would have felt good about paying money for that movie.
Yeah, I wouldn't call it sensational.
I wouldn't mind paying like $5 on a Tuesday to go
I
watch
wouldn't
it.
mind
in
if
the
Tyson gave me $5 on a Tuesday to watch the movie.
All right. Well, bye.
Bye. Say it.
What?
Say goodbye.
Say goodbye.
Farewell.